Hello, Scream Demons, and welcome to the Screams from the Basement podcast with Sam and Casey. I am one of your co-hosts. I am Casey.
And I'm Sam. Let's get screaming.
And on this episode, we are joined by one of the guys behind the Hell House LLC franchise. No, not that guy. The other one. The one we're welcoming back to the show, writer, director, producer, Joe Bandelli.
Joe returns to the basement from the set of the fifth Hell House LLC movie, coming October 2025, to chat about his latest movie out now. It's called Another Cabin in the Woods movie. It is a horror comedy about, you guessed it, another cabin in the woods. Joe, welcome to the show.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm so happy to be back and chatting with you guys because I love chatting all things horror.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, we are so excited to welcome you back and to have you back on the show to talk about something outside of the world of Hell House, because that's something we've obviously want to still promote and talk about because we love it so much, but we want to talk about other things in the horror genre, and one of those things we're talking about is your new movie, Another Cabin in the Woods. So first of all, one, congrats on the movie. Like, yes. One, it's a miracle. Any movie comes out, gets made and released. I think that's a huge thing too, of just it's out there, it's in the world. So congrats on the movie, first of all.
Thank you very much.
Well, first question then, Another Cabin in the Woods, where did this initial concept for this movie come from?
Yeah, so this movie we shot a long time ago, and it's been through a process. So when I originally came up with the idea, it was my writing partner Matthew Wise, who plays Grant in the film. The two of us came up with this concept together, and we started the writing journey together. And later on, we brought in Nick Landa further down the line. But basically, when we wrote this movie, we wanted to make a horror comedy. We wanted to make a whodunit, and we really wanted to kind of look into the cabin in the woods subgenre and poke fun at it. Like, the whole point was, since like Evil Dead and Cabin Fever and Cabin in the Woods, like there's so many, like Friday the 13th, there's so many movies that always start with a cast that goes to an isolated location, and then one by one they all get killed by someone. And so we were like, yeah, let's just make fun of that. Like, let's play in that world. We both had comedy backgrounds. At the time I was working on the first Hell House, and we were doing serious horror, we were doing supernatural horror, and it felt like the obvious choice, like play in the slasher world, which I love, and have some fun with it. So when we wrote it, we wanted it to be original concept, but we wanted the characters to be tropes and stereotypes of things that you've seen before. So the one thing that I always say about this movie is, just because of the title, I think a lot of people, it plays into that parody world, but I think a lot of people expect that you're going to be watching a movie that's going to take scenes from Cabin in the Woods and make them funny, or take scenes from Evil Dead or Friday the 13th and make them funny. Like, we're not taking anyone else's scenes. This is an original concept, an original story, an original whodunit. It's just a lot of the things that the characters act like, their character archetypes, are the things that we're poking fun of. And we're trying to be very self-aware of that with the movie.
Yeah, that's awesome. Talking about the original concept, it's kind of, it joins the ranks of great slashers about love. Things like My Bloody Valentine, Valentine, Warm Bodies. Like, I love romantic horror where it's almost like horror meets rom-com, and this is very much that. So where did the idea to have it be like a destination wedding, where did that come from?
I think Matt and I, when we started doing this, Matt was in a relationship, and I think I just got out of a relationship. And I think one of the things that we always talk about is, like, when you talk about love, when you talk about weddings, when you talk about all that stuff, it's supposed to be a good thing, but it also is a bad thing. Like, if you get your heart broken, if you get, I guess, murdered, like, those are not good things. Yeah. But so we were kind of like, well, what are the bad things that could happen from this? And then that's kind of, we've had heard stories about crazy exes and so on and so forth. And so we were like, okay, cool. What if we took a story involving love and a love triangle, and we took these characters and put them all in a house together and see what happens and how it plays out, see what the tension is, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of what we were trying to do. And then, that being said, we are both huge whodunit fans. I'm a huge Agatha Christie fan. Scream is obviously one of the movies that kind of created the foundation for me being a filmmaker. So I love the fact that we were able to, with every kill in the movie, it points the finger at a couple people, and then the next kill, it kind of like takes the finger pointing away from those people and points at other people. So we purposely did it, and which was a very challenging process, but we almost certainly did it to kind of lay out a ton of red herrings throughout the movie and hopefully play into something that we thought was somewhat creative.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the
Absolutely.
things I'm curious about, because watching the movie, as you know, as just an observer of the movie, you're always constantly wondering, okay, here someone gets killed here, but this person was over here doing this. This other person was here. Could have been them, but they were here. What's it like in the editing process then of making sure? All right, we got to make sure these characters that aren't suspects are nowhere near this, or they might be suspects, so they have to be somewhat within the
Right, the
vicinity
realm.
of the murder. Yeah. So
Well,
what's
well,
the editing process look like?
so it's more that editing process is really not a post-production process. It's more of a pre-production writing process. And I think when I write scripts, I know everyone has their own method of how they write scripts. When I write scripts, I'm a big outliner. So like I know a lot of people who can come up with an idea and just sit down and start writing. I don't really work that way. I'm usually a type of person that like I need to hit like my three main points of the story. I need to hit my inciting incident, my climax. I need to put those things out there. And then I like to build characters and I like to put that in. And I usually get to like a 10 to 15 page outline where I'm hitting my major story points. And then once I have that, then I start writing. And so with this one, we had that arc layout, that big outline. But then what we started doing was we went to each kill and we said, okay, reality wise, who could potentially get away and kill this person? And we'd write down the names. And then we'd go to the next scene and we'd do all of that kind of stuff. And like if we looked at it and like let's say our killer was in, let's say 5 of the 6 kills, we're like, okay, maybe we should change this up a little bit so our killer's in 2 of the 6, or maybe 3 of the 6 or something. Or so we always wanted to kind of keep the finger pointing and moving it around, and then we would rewrite and rechange story points so that when we did get to the actual script writing part, it was just dialogue and scene description that we had to fill in there, and we already knew where we were going with all these different things. And listen, I'll be the first one to admit, a lot of times in these movies, like if you guys have seen the new Scream movies, like I love them, but like in Scream 5, like one of the killers is a guy that's 6 feet tall, and one of the killers is a girl that's 5 feet tall. Like
Yeah.
you have to suspend some form of disbelief. You know what I mean? When you're suspension of disbelief when you're watching something like that, because like I'm pretty sure like the 5 foot girl is the one who kills Dewey, and it's like I don't no disrespect, but like I don't think that person is physically capable of overpowering that other. That's like, but as like a whodunit, you kind of go along for the ride and things like that. So I know with this one, we had those conversations. We talked about certain things. We talked about limitations, and I think the fact that we didn't ever show a killer and we only showed a hand or a boot or something like that, it helped with that because we never actually showed the like a cloaked figure or a character that it's like, oh wait, that's not that person.
Yeah.
You know, I remember somewhere listening to Seth Rogen talk about working with producer Neil Moritz, and Neil Moritz, who's mostly famous for the Fast and Furious, said, "Cool always outweighs reality."
Right. Right.
Like,
Exactly. 100%. Yeah. And it's also like on the other thing, like I'm a big story guy. Like story will always outrank everything else. Like if you have a
mhm,
good story, people will overlook bad cinematography, bad acting, bad directing. Like people will overlook those kinds of things. And I think, we were very lucky. We had a phenomenal crew who shot this. Our cinematographer, Carlos
yeah.
Garcia de Dios, did an amazing job. We had a really low budget for this movie, and I don't think the movie looks like it's a really low budget.
No, it looks great. Your lighting in this is
Mhm.
tremendous, especially in today's world of even big studio horror movies.
Right.
Just feeling like very murky and dark.
Yep.
How did the lighting process work on something that's like as low budget as it was? Like um
Really
what
good
was that like
people.
working with that crew?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good people. Carlos is a good friend of mine, and we were talking about working together for a really long time, and I wanted to make sure he had the time to do the things. It was an ambitious shot list. It was a 22-day shoot, and I think we really like. Usually you can tell in a lot of movies when they do exterior night scenes, like that's when it starts to become like apparent if this is a bigger budget movie or a smaller
Yep.
budget
Yep.
movie.
Yeah.
And and I think we did a good job with what we had, and I think Carlos did an amazing job. And then our colorist, Mark Todd Osborne, who I'm not sure if you guys know the name, but he's the guy who did It Follows.
Oh wow.
He's phenomenal, and him and I have a great relationship, and have worked on a few movies together. And he colored this, and I feel like he really made Carlos's lighting pop and did a lot of really nice things that really kind of separated this from movies that are made for the same amount of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, this movie was shot almost 10 years ago, and it looks like a movie that was shot 2 months ago. Like it
Right.
looks incredible. The movie, again, for a low budget movie, you couldn't tell. You pop this on against a most modern studio horror movies, and it looks
Blumhouse.
it looks like that. Yeah, it looks like a modern studio horror movie. And that's a testament to you guys pulling that off
Thank you.
so well. And I guess next question then, what was the biggest struggle on set with this? Because you are working within time limitations, you're on a lower budget. What was the biggest struggle you guys had on set trying to overcome?
So I can say, like, from a personal perspective, like, I bit off a lot on this. Like, I was the lead producer on it. I was one of the writers on it. I directed it. I'm in it for a bit. I was helping out in special effects. Like, I took on a lot of hats, and in retrospect, I feel like if I didn't, there would have been things in the movie that could have been a little bit better. But I feel like that was like my first like chance to like do it all, and I wanted to do it all. But I think the biggest challenge on set, like for probably most people, were the special effects sequences and the death sequences. The Carter scene outside in the rain was a particularly challenging one, because when you're dealing with blood and you're dealing with a lot of that stuff and you're dealing with rain, it washes away pretty quickly. So, and then also Dwayne Cooper, who plays Carter in the movie, it looked like he was doing really well in that scene, but he was in that rain for hours, and like it was not like we intended to shoot this movie in early September. We wound up shooting it in late October, early November. So it was like 30 degrees outside while we were shooting
Oof.
this. So it was brutal. And like I remember when we were shooting, there was a scene. I think you see it once where he like right when he gets. I don't know. Are we allowed to do spoilers on this? Should we do spoilers? You
Maybe a
guys tell me.
slight
Totally up to
spoiler
you.
warning.
Slight
Yeah,
spoilers,
Okay.
if you will.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so he gets hit with an axe, and when he gets hit with the axe, I think he gargles and spits blood out. And when we were shooting it, he was gargling and doing that a lot. And I remember I cut, and I'm like, "You got to stop doing that." And he was like, "I'm kind of drowning." And I was like, "Holy shit, are we waterboarding you?" I'm like, "I'm sorry, we didn't mean to do that." And like, and like anyone who knows me or who's worked with me knows that like my number one priority, even though the movie is like the priority, my number one priority is making sure everyone feels safe on set. Like cast has to feel safe. We're not going to do anything dangerous. Crew's not going to be overworked, not going to work crazy ass hours. That was probably the craziest hours of any of the films I've ever shot. But I just like, it's crazy to see how ambitious we were with those things, because it was like, okay, great, we're doing a really long day today. We have special effects, we have rain, and then I didn't do us any favors by having like a 30 setup shot list. So I definitely learned a lot from that experience in terms of like what to like change and what to be forgiving on and let go of, and what to actually fight for and make sure that you are putting into your certain kill sequences.
Yeah, absolutely. So you also mentioned you are in this movie,
Yeah.
in quite a funny role.
Not by
Um,
choice. Not by choice.
not
by
by
the way.
choice. Okay, there's a
No.
story there. Let's start with that. Why are you in this movie?
I, Again, anyone who knows me knows this. Like, I love, like, if I have the option of being in front of camera and behind the camera, every time, 10 out of 10 times behind the camera. Like, I'm a director, I'm a filmmaker by heart. Like, I feel so much stronger working with actors. I've found in my career, it's different now, but when I started, I found that there's a lot of times when I'd write some comedic scenes and I'd have a character whose literal job was to deliver one funny line, or job was just to do one thing. And a lot of times, when you're working with pros and you're working with people, they want to build from their performance. They want to know where it's coming from. They want to know how to develop that. And I found that in my earlier days as a director, whenever I was bringing on someone who was supposed to be the comic relief or something, or just to deliver a line that was supposed to be funny to kill tension in a scene, um, it was like it was so overly complicated to get the person to just, where all I wanted to say was just say the fucking line. Like just say the line, and like that's all you need to do. And I think there were times that I was just like, man, I'll just do it. Like I have a comedy background. I know what I want from this. I'll just do it. And I think that's what happened with this character was I was auditioning people and like no one was kind of getting it. And like part of that was probably on me as a director at the time, not really being able to explain it the way I wanted. But I think part of it was on the fact that like too many people were trying to make it this major like character that had this intense arc and was such an important part. And like, you know, in some horror movies characters were just made to die, and so
Yep.
that was kind of one of the things where I was like, listen, this character is not in the movie for a very long period of time. It's not going to be a ton of time of me away from screen. Like there's really only two sequences where I needed to like really check playback and like make sure I was getting the angles they wanted, which was the fight scene and the wood scene. And everything else, it was like, I'm shooting this way. I trust my cinematographer. I trust my AD, and let's just make this thing happen. And you know, the more I did it, the more takes we did, the creepier I got, and the more I feel. You guys can tell me, but I feel like the goal with that character was to make audiences be like, kill this motherfucker.
Yeah. I was
Yeah,
just gonna say, as soon
you
as your
nailed that.
character shows up, it's like, oh, he's the first one that's gonna die. Okay.
Exactly.
I gotta say though, like you, I mean, you say you don't like being in front of the camera. I loved you in front of the camera. I thought
Yeah.
Thanks.
your high pitched squeal that your character has like had me giggling every time. It was so funny.
That had my other producing partner, who was our editor on this, Nick Landa. That he will try anytime he's like my editor for everything I do. He will always try, even if I'm not in the movie, he will try to incorporate one of my yells or screams into the movie. It's like his Wilhelm yell.
Amazing.
That's hilarious. Yeah, that's because it is. It's so funny. It's just a very high pitched squeal that's coming out of
Right.
your character, where it's like, yeah, you want that character to die. And
Right.
I mean, again, spoilers. You are the first one to go.
Yeah, unfortunately. Poor Hector Manuel Gonzalo Domingo III.
Poor guy.
Oh, amazing.
So what are some of the lessons you mentioned quite a bit that this is, you know, an early film that you were behind the scenes on directing. What are some of the lessons that you learned from this movie that you've now brought to future sets?
I mean, listen, every movie you make, by the time you get done making the movie, you're already a better filmmaker than you were when you started the process. So add in the years of complications and things like, yeah, like if you told me go make that movie today, there's 100% things I would do differently, but it's the same to every Hell House. It's the same to every documentary. It's the same to every other feature that I made. Like I would probably try to do things differently, and I would probably shoot it differently. And I probably try to put more time into this and less time into that. Whatever worked, keep the same. Whatever didn't, change. So I think the biggest lessons that I learned is I feel like it's hard to, like, when you're bringing on a crew and you're bringing on people, one of the biggest things that you should be asking yourself is who's going to care, like who's going to actually care. And I think when you get a group of people, which we had in this, who really cared about the quality of the product and really cared about making sure that this was what it was, I think it really stands out. And it's not something that was like a mistake that I needed to fix in the future. It's more of a, it was a confirmation of, oh, when you get the right people, good things happen. And we had to be creative. Like one of the things that I've told people in the past is that rain sequence. Like if we had millions of dollars, we would have had rain. Like we would have had all of the stuff that they have in Hollywoods, where they bring in all the things and all the rain guards, and they bring them in, and you're just shooting rain and cutting and like whatever. But obviously we didn't have the budget for that. And one of the things that like I'm so proud of with this is when you watch that rain sequence, that feels like real rain, and you don't think like anything is different. And we accomplished that by literally buying massive pieces of plywood and just drilling thousands of holes in it and literally clamping it and putting it up above all the actors and having our grips shoot hoses down through the whole thing. And like that was one of my, like, I came up with that and I was like, man, like that worked 10,000 times better than I ever thought. And I think when you're forced to do things on a budget, it forces you to kind of go into this place where you have to be super creative to make things look good. And I think a lot of times where I've learned in my career, because I have done things for more and more and higher budget as I've gone along, is sometimes when you get more money, that doesn't mean your problems are going to be solved, because the more money you have, believe me, the more problems you get along the way.
Awesome.
Well,
There was someone, I was going to say, there was someone who made a song about that, but I don't think people should listen to his music anymore, because he's kind of a piece of shit.
Not the time to listen.
Fair, fair, yeah.
Yeah. No, as soon as you mentioned the rain sequence, yeah, that was something that I was noticing, like watching. I was like, God, this looks like really good. Most low budget movies, they're not trying to touch. They're not wanting to touch outdoors or night at all. And you're like, yeah, let's have rain.
Let's do them all.
Let's do rain at night in the dark. Like,
I will say this: one of the mistakes that I've made as a filmmaker is my first feature had a rain sequence, night rain sequence. My second one had a fire sequence. Like, if I could make any recommendations to filmmakers out there, what Steven did in the Hell House franchise and what we've done in the Hell House franchise is write for your budget and write for the stuff, and you can be creative with your scares and your kills. And if horror, you really just need to make it scary. If it's a horror comedy, you really just need to make it funny. Like, there's elements of work with what you have. And I think what I've made the mistake on in my career is, like, first movie I wrote for like $500,000 and I did not have $500,000. And then the second movie I wrote for like $2 million and I did not have $2 million. But you'll get there. You just got to be able to, like, really understand what your budget is and really write for what you have. It's so easy for people to make movies nowadays. I think as long as you're, writing for what you can accomplish physically is like number one. And then number two, which is actually number one, is the story is so important. The story is the number one important thing. And like we just said a few minutes ago, like, if you have a good story, people will forget bad acting, directing, cinematography, sometimes even sound, even though sound is super important, is usually the number one thing people notice. But if you have a good story, people will hold on, and they will jump on the train and follow along for the ride.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that hooked me in this movie, the funniest thing to me, is the radio broadcast and the helicopter the helicopter chatter that goes on throughout, that's kind of just narrating the movie while all the characters are just oblivious to it, even while it's telling them, like, get the fuck out of here. Like, it's so funny. Where did that come in creatively? Was that something you found in post? Was that always in the script? Like, how did you come across that?
So I had a couple ideas, but I never put it into the script, because I didn't want, like, my favorite movies when it comes to parodies and when it comes to kind of spoofing things, my favorite movies have always been like Naked Gun movies, have been like Mel Brooks movies, have been Airplane. I think Airplane is the best spoof movie of all time, and it stands the test of time. Like, sure, like, airports aren't like that anymore, and airplanes aren't like, you can't smoke on an airplane. Like, that didn't stand the test of time, but the funny and the way it's played out with everyone playing it so serious. Like, I grew up watching the Pink Panther series with Peter Sellers, and he was so serious, even though it was so wacky. And I think when you look at the scary movies and you look at how spoof movies have evolved, there's definitely characters and people that play it serious, but there's also characters that are so ridiculously over the top. And I knew that if we put a lot of those jokes into the script and the cast read those things, they were going to play it differently. And I always wanted them to play it serious. Like, I always wanted them to play it serious. So we didn't really let the cast know a lot of that. They knew they were making a horror comedy. I don't think they knew they were making a parody movie. And so that was always intentional. But basically how it came about was when we were in post, my editor, producer, writing partner, Nick Landa, who's amazing. We did the introduction to Carter and Trish in the car, and that was written funny, and it was meant to be funny. And when we put it together, it was funny, but something could have been funnier. And I couldn't figure it out. I was like, I know this is funny, but, like, it's kind of like at times like a fart joke or a dick joke. Like, if you don't do it the right way, it's just another generic fart joke or dick joke. But if you do it in a very interesting and unique way, it's funny. And so that's kind of what I was feeling about it. I was thinking about cutting it, and Nick sent me a cut with the meditation guide. And I was like, oh my God. I'm like, that's amazing. And he and I basically went on to bring on actors and write all of these additional parts for this, like, whole new cast that was never going to be seen in the movie. And that, like I probably said this before, so if anyone is listening has heard this, I'm sorry I'm repeating myself, but have you guys seen Hot Shots Part 2?
Oh, I know. I haven't watched that one, no.
Well, you should.
Okay.
Charlie Sheen's amazing, but it's a spoof movie from the '90s. But there's a scene in the movie where, um, after the first movie, his character goes off and like goes into the jungle, and he's kind of like a Sylvester Stallone, like Rambo type character, and he's like off he's in an Indian reservation, and they like go to, like, all of these military people go to get him, and they go outside of his teepee and they knock on the teepee, and then you hear like locks and like chains and everything getting unlocked, and then he pops his head out, and like that was a post-production thing that they added in that was so funny. And so I think a lot of the stuff that Nick and I were kind of establishing were like, we had a couple jokes, and then really when we like started talking about it, kind of opened up this whole other thing that I think really took the movie from a horror comedy to a horror parody and made it self-aware. And one thing that I will always say is, I love when people and filmmakers don't take themselves too seriously. I know that I'm an artist, and I know that everyone in my industry is an artist, and I know it is a creative industry, but I think so many times people rely on the artist and say, I'm going to do my art, I'm going to be this artist, and I'm going to change the world. And we're in an entertainment industry. Like, your job is to entertain an audience. And if you're just going off and making your art and nothing else matters but your art, like, to me, you're kind of failing as a filmmaker, because that's not what this is. This is not meant for you to take someone else's money, do whatever you want, and then be done with it. Like, that's how people get fired. That's how people lose their jobs. I think this industry is about making something that is creative, unique, and artistic, so you can put yourself into it, that's realistic for other people, but it also has to have some form of entertainment value. And this is meant to make people laugh. Like, this is meant to show people, like, hey, you've probably watched 1,000 movies where people go to an isolated situation and everyone dies. Like, you've seen that so many times before, but what haven't you seen? You haven't seen people telling the people, like the audience, like, hey, get the fuck out of there, like, you guys are being dumb. And like, that's kind of what we added into this. So like, I wouldn't say this movie is a parody movie. I will very, to the day I die, say it is original content. We're not taking someone else's content, we're taking our content, and then we're introducing the tropes and the stereotypes of what you've seen dozens and dozens of times before, and we're mocking fun with it, and we're not taking ourselves too seriously while we're doing it.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah. That is great advice, because there
Yeah.
are so many times where you watch movies where, like, what are we doing? Like, why are you so
Yeah.
serious? Be a little, we bring fun back to movies, and this is
Right.
definitely one of those.
And people who don't like work in the industry, they'll always ask, like, not people, like, people who don't really know much about the industry will say, like I have people in my friends family that don't watch any of the movies I do because they don't like horror movies. And like, I'll have people who don't watch horror movies be like, is this scary making those movies? And it's like, no, it is the exact opposite of scary. Like, if you see Michael Myers in Halloween coming around the corner and stabbing someone, in reality there's 100 people there, they're all like talking about it, it's all like a guy in a mask, not Michael Myers. It's funny, it's kind of silly. And so that's kind of one of the things that I wanted to poke fun on, because like, the Hell House franchise is serious. Like, that's a very serious franchise. It's supernatural, it's serious. But while we're making those movies, it's not all serious. We're laughing, we're joking around. And I think, me as a director, I wanted to bring some of that into a movie where I let the audience have that fun as well. And I let the audience like see that, like, hey, you know what? Like, there is a stereotype of the black guy always dying first. And we're not going to let him die first, but we're going to explain why he isn't dying first. And we're going to say, every single time that we think he's going to die, you need to get out of there. And like, that to me was like one of the things that I wanted to play with and I wanted to have fun with. And, that's the kind of stuff that I feel like this franchise, hopefully it'll be a franchise, but this film is intended to do.
Hell yeah. That's awesome.
All right. Well, I have 2 follow-up questions with that, because
Sure.
you mentioned franchise. I'm going to talk about this one first, and then we got to talk a little Hell House
Oh, of
on
course,
here too.
of course.
But
yeah.
are there talks for a sequel for this one? Would you want to do a sequel? Would you want to do something that's also maybe a different slasher not parody, but like slasher comedy, maybe spoofing not the Cabin in the Woods, but maybe some other subgenre of the slashers.
100%. There's 2 movies that I am in the process of writing right now, and I think I'm leaning one of them. But yes, this was not when this kind of came about. This became something that I was like, I can do a lot of these, and I can have a lot of fun with this stuff. And so, yes, there will be more of these. I guarantee that.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
And then follow up, you're on set, Hell House LLC, the 5th movie. We saw a report that this could be the last one. What can we expect from the 5th Hell House movie?
So I'm not a spoiler person, so I don't like to ruin things.
Oh yeah, we don't want to know any
No,
spoilers.
we don't want to
at
know
all.
what
No, 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 no.
happens.
Right. I think what fans can expect from this movie is what we've done in the past with gore, what we've done in the past with special effects. This is the most special effects driven one that we're doing. This is, I think we're trying something very new in this, and I think it's going to be exciting for fans, and I think they're going to like it. And yes, this is what I will say to that. I will say this: when we made the original trilogy, we left Lake of Fire saying, "This is over. We are done." We never expected to come back and make Origins. We never expected to make Lineage, but we came back and we made those things anyway. So I will say this, if this answers your question. This is intended to be the last Hell House movie. We plan to walk away from this after we are done with this, because we've told a lot of Hell House stories. We know the fans love it. But as Another Cabin is showing you, Steven and I both have a lot of other projects that we want to work on and a lot of other things that we want to do. But I think if I've learned anything as a fan, as well as a one of the people creating this for people, never say never.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, we're excited to see whatever you guys are going to do next, because like whether it's
Thank
a
you.
Hell House movie or it's something in a completely different, brand new sandbox, like we want to see you guys do that, because you guys have been knocking it out of the park, for the last decade. So keep this up, like even if it's it's not the Hell House stuff.
We will try.
Yeah.
We're hoping to continue to do that.
Yes.
Well, awesome. We are excited for that. Again, Joe, I have one more question left that we're going to finish off on. But before we get to that, where can people watch Another Cabin in the Woods movie?
Sure. Yeah. Another Cabin in the Woods movie. It's coming out on a ton of platforms, but the platform that I think is the most watched platform actually is Tubi. So it's coming out on Tubi on Friday, November 11th. You'll be able to watch it. It is free to watch. So I definitely recommend people checking it out. And I'll say this. This is the movie. Obviously, I feel like you guys are being very kind to me. This is the movie that I think either people are going to absolutely love or they're just not going to get it. And I'm very okay with that. Like, I think it will be something for horror fans. I think it's something for comedy fans. I think we have some stuff for action fans. I think this is something that kind of, for all the people in my life who say they don't like to watch horror movies, this is funny. And I think you'll like this. But that being said, there are definitely some pretty cool kill sequences in this movie as well. So our horror fans should be happy with it.
Awesome.
Yeah, please go check this out. Like again, me and Sam don't give any hyperbole on stuff when we actually like stuff. Like we both really dug this movie, and we want people to go check this out because it is a wholly unique whodunit idea with a very unique sense of humor in it. And that sense of humor is, it's me and Sam's sense of humor. So I think that if people are into the same types of comedy as us, they're gonna dig this movie.
Thank you guys.
I won't spoil anything, but I do love the campy killer reveal montage. Like I am a sucker for those, and yours is just it's awesome. It really is.
We did, on one of my cuts, I didn't have that in there, and I was like, I need to put this in there. This is so ridiculously funny. Like we gotta add this into it. Yeah.
Yes, it's so funny. I was giggling the whole way through it. I was like, yes, this is what I want out of this.
If I can give anyone who's going to go watch it advice, I would say make sure your speakers are turned up. And this is not the movie that you can be like vacuuming and doing work. Like I hope you guys are horror guys and you guys are movie guys, so you'll get this. But attention spans are less. People are on their phones. They go to movie theaters. They're talking. They're on their phones. People don't pay attention to movies anymore. And this is the type of movie that I'm hoping if you are doing that, maybe 10 minutes in, you're going to hear something and go, wait, did he just say what I think they just said? Oh shit, I got to rewind this and watch this and then pay
Mhm.
attention to the movie. So that's what I'm hoping.
I think you're gonna have that reaction quite a bit. Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
Especially in the opening scene in the car. Like this. Wait, what was that joke? Okay.
The
Yeah.
guided meditation thing
Yeah.
it was a huge belly laugh from me.
Yeah.
It was so
Yep.
funny.
Yep.
I mean, it was so funny. We brought a callback to it later in the movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right,
Uh,
Joe. One last question we're gonna leave you off with then.
Sure.
Because people they're gonna go watch Another Cabin in the Woods. What movie are you gonna pair with it for an ultimate double feature if they're gonna watch 2 movies that night?
Ooh. Man, I would say if you want to have some fun and laugh, I think you're going to pair Shaun of the Dead with it. I don't think
yeah.
it's the same type of movie as Shaun of the Dead, but if you want to watch something that's horrific and funny and laugh and see some cool special effects stuff, you're going to watch both of those movies.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Great,
Yeah.
great
That's
choice.
a great pick, and especially both that are not they're on the borderline of horror comedy into that parody, but they're not a parody of a singular movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
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 Yeah.
That's
Great
awesome.
pick. Well, Joe, thank
Cool.
you again for taking time out of your busy schedule in the middle of you guys shooting the new Hell House movie and on the promo tour for Another Cabin in the Woods movie to join us today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you guys. I really appreciate you guys. I've obviously been a fan for a while now, so keep doing this and keep kicking ass. And thanks for having me on.
Hey guys, Casey popping in here from the editing bay. Just wanted to give a quick shout out to this episode's guest, Joe Bandelli, who joined us from the set of Hell House 5. We are so excited to have Joe back on the show, and we cannot wait to have him back after this as well. We're definitely going to have him on the show to talk about Hell House Lineage when that drops next October. So again, thanks to Joe Bandelli for being a guest on this podcast. Go check out Another Cabin in the Woods movie, streaming now for free on Tubi. Please give that a watch, and we hope you enjoyed it, because Sam and I had an absolute blast watching it. As far as plugs go, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. You can also find us on TikTok, YouTube, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. Just search Screams from the Basement. We're the first thing that will pop up on all of those platforms, so give us a like, rating, review, follow, any of the things that you can do to help out the show. We greatly appreciate it. Also, we have to let people know that we have started a Patreon. Yes, we started a Patreon. Links to that in our bio, or if you click on the show notes for this episode, it'll be there as well. You'll get bonus episodes, you'll get weekly vlogs, written reviews. Hey, you'll even get a special signed 8x10 with original artwork from our very own Sam Lent. So we have $1 tiers, $5 tiers. Please go check those out and help support the show any way you can. Also, our TeePublic store is on sale right now through, I believe, the 24th. So you have about till the end of the month. It is the pre-Black Friday sale, so you can get some awesome Screams from the Basement merch on there as well. But until next time, this has been Screams from the Basement. I'm Casey Kelderman. Sam Lens isn't here, but he'll say the same thing I'm about to. Thanks for tuning in, and sweet screams.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal, providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.